The United States Senate, they are about to start the 112th Congress. 16 new members, 13 Republicans. Swearing in the newly elected senators and officially re-electing Senate leaders and officials. A live picture now from the Senate floor. Those officials, those folks that you see sitting at the front desk, also get re-elected. They'll consider some resolutions dealing with how the Senate is organized for the next couple of years, and that includes what some Democrats have said they plan, that is, changes to the Senate filibuster rules. Those rules last revised in 1975 when the Senate voted to reduce the number of votes needed to shut off debate to that current number of 60. The majority party, the Democrats, are now 7 votes short of that threshold. Senators might also propose to change what's called secret holds. That lets a senator secretly block any bill or resolution. And also today, Maryland Democrat Barbara Mikulski will become the longest-serving female senator, and we would expect that senators will speak and congratulate Senator Mikulski on that. The House also undergoing some major changes today. Republicans taking control, and Ohio's John Boehner will replace Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House. Republicans are proposing a completely new set of rules for House operations, and our live coverage of the House is over on C-SPAN. We're right here with the Senate all day today, and every time the Senate is in session here on C-SPAN 2. And as we wait for things to get underway, we'll remind you that the Senate convening in just a few minutes here. The 20th Amendment to the Constitution directs a new Congress convene at noon on January 3rd in odd-number years, unless the previous Congress has set a different date, which often happens. And as you see here, we are on January 5th. We expect the Vice President to preside when the Senate convenes. The chaplain will offer a prayer, and then the Vice President should announce the receipt of the certificates and credentials of election of senators who were newly elected or re-elected this past November. And again, we're waiting for things to get underway. We see the Vice President there actually making his way up now to the chair. So live coverage here of the 112th Congress underway on C-SPAN 2.
Senate will come to order. The Senate will come to order, please. The chaplain, Barry Black, will read we'll say the Senate prayer.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who has placed us here and gives us work to do. At the opening of the 112th Congress, we pause to thank you for sustaining this nation from generation to generation in prosperity and in adversity. We praise you for this new year with its new horizons, fresh challenges, and high duties. May the solemn induction of some of our lawmakers become the renewal of vows for all. Give our senators the wisdom to exert their best efforts for the security of this land we love. In the words of the prophet Micah, may they do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with you. Join them in heart, mind, and soul to build a better world. Lord, guide by your higher wisdom the President, the Vice President, the members of the Senate and the House of Representatives, that they may ever seek to know and do your will. We pray in your sovereign name. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Senate will come to order, please. The Senate will come to order. The Chair lays before the Senate one certificate of election to fill the unexpired term and the certificates of election for 34 senators elected for 6-year terms beginning January 3rd, 2011. All certificates, the Chair is advised, are in the form suggested by the Senate or contain all the essential requirements of the form suggested by the Senate. If there is no objection, the reading of the certificates will be waived and they will be printed in the record in full. If the senators to be sworn in will now present themselves at the desk in groups of 4 as their names are called in alphabetical order, the Chair will administer the oath. The clerk will read the names of the first group.
Ms. Ayotte of New Hampshire, Mr. Bennett of Colorado, Mr. Blumenthal of Connecticut, Mr. Blunt of Missouri.
Would you please raise your right hands? I'm going to read the entire oath and you will respond appropriately. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this oath freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God? I do. Congratulations. The clerk will call the names of the next group.
Mr. Bozeman of Arkansas, Mrs. Boxer of California, Mr. Burr of North Carolina, Mr. Coates of Indiana.
Good to see you. Would you all please raise your right hand, and I will read the oath. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this oath freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God? I do. Congratulations, Senator. Thank you. Senate, please come to order. The clerk will call the names of the next group.
Mr. Coburn of Oklahoma, Mr. Crapo of Idaho, Mr. Dement of South Carolina, Mrs. Gillibrand of New York.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that you take this oath freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which you are about to enter, so help you God? I do. Congratulations and welcome. The Senate will please come to order. The clerk will call the names. The Senate will please come to order. The clerk will call the names of the next group.
Mr. Grassley of Iowa, Mr. Hoven of North Dakota, Mr. Inouye of Hawaii, Mr. Isaacson of Georgia.
All please raise your hand. Right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations. Welcome. The Senate will please come to order. The clerk will call the names of the next group.
Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin, Mr. Kirk of Illinois, Mr. Leahy of Vermont, Mr. Lee of Utah.
Bernie didn't make it then? Bernie's not here, huh?
Would you all please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this oath of obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which you're about to enter, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations. And welcome. Senate will please come to order. The clerk will call the names of the next group.
Mr. McCain of Arizona, Ms. Mikulski of Maryland, Mr. Moran of Kansas, Ms. Murkowski of Alaska.
Would you all please raise your right hands? Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that you take this oath of obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you're about to enter, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations, Your Honor. The Senate will please come to order. The clerk will call the names of the next group.
Mrs. Murray of Washington, Mr. Paul of Kentucky, Mr. Portman of Ohio, Mr. Reed of Nevada.
Would you all please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that you take this oath of obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God? Congratulations. Welcome back. The Senate will come to order, please. The clerk will call the names of the next group.
Mr. Rubio of Florida, Mr. Schumer of New York, Mr. Shelby of Alabama, Mr. Thune of South Dakota.
Get sworn in. Thank you. Would you all please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that you take this oath of obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you're about to enter, so help you God? Congratulations. The Senate will please come to order. The clerk will call the names of the next group.
Mr. Toomey of
The order in the Senate, please. The clerk will call the names of the next group.
Mr. Toomey of Pennsylvania, Mr. Vitter of Louisiana, Mr. Wyden of Oregon.
Would you all please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which you're about to enter, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations. The Majority Leader, please be ordered in the Senate.
Note the absence of quorum.
The clerk, the absence of quorum having been suggested, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka, Mr. Alexander. Ms. Ayotte. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Baucus. Mr. Beckidge. Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bingaman. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blunt. Mr. Bozeman. Mrs. Boxer. Mr. Brown of Massachusetts.
Last I saw you, you said
Mr. Brown of Ohio.
gathering. I go, okay.
Mr. Burr. Ms. Cantwell. Mr. Cardin.
And Bones doing well?
Mr. Carper. Mr. Casey.
Tell him I was asking.
Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Coates. Mr. Coburn. Mr. Cochran. Ms. Collins. Mr. Conrad. Mr. Coons. Mr. Corker. Mr. Cornyn. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Dement. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Ensign. Mr. Enzi. Mrs. Feinstein. Mr. Franken. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mr. Graham. Mr. Grassley. Mrs. Hagan. Mr. Harkin. Mr. Hatch. Mr. Hoven. Mrs. Hutchison. Mr. Inhofe. Mr. Inouye. Mr. Isaacson. Mr. Johann. Mr. Johnson of Wisconsin. Mr. Johnson of South Dakota. Mr. Carey. Mr. Kirk. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Cole. Mr. Kyle. Ms. Landrieu. Mr. Lautenberg. Mr. Leahy. Mr. Lee. Mr. Levin. Mr. Lieberman. Mr. Lugar. Mr. Manchin. Mr. McCain. Mrs. McCaskill. Mr. McConnell. Mr. Menendez. Mr. Merkley. Ms. Mikulski. Mr. Moran. Ms. Murkowski. Mrs. Murray. Mr. Nelson of Nebraska. Mr. Nelson of Florida. Mr. Paul. Mr. Portman. Mr. Pryor. Mr. Reed of Rhode Island. Mr. Reed of Nevada. Mr. Risch. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Rockefeller. Mr. Rubio. Mr. Sanders. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Sessions. Mrs. Shaheen. Mr. Shelby. Ms. Snow. Ms. Stabenow. Mr. Tester. Mr. Thune. Mr. Toomey. Mr. Udall, Colorado. Mr. Udall of New Mexico. Mr. Vitter. Mr. Warner. Mr. Webb. Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wyden.
A quorum is present.
Mr. President,
Majority Leader,
I have a resolution to the desk. I ask that it now be considered.
the clerk will report the resolution.
S. Res. 1, informing the President of the United States that a quorum of each House is assembled.
Without objection, the resolution is considered and agreed to.
I move to reconsider that vote by which
Without-
the resolution was agreed to.
Without objection, pursuant to Senate Resolution, what's the number? 1, the chair appoints the senator from Nevada, Mr. Reed, and the senator from Kentucky, Mr. McConnell, as a committee to join the committee on the part of the House of Representatives to wait upon the President of the United States and inform him that a quorum is assembled and the Congress is ready to receive any communication that he may be pleased to make.
Mr. President, I have another resolution to the desk. I ask that it be considered.
The clerk will report.
As Res 2, informing the House of Representatives that a quorum of the Senate is assembled.
Without objection, the resolution is considered and agreed to.
Mr. President, I move to reconsider that vote.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I have a resolution at the desk. Ask that it
Clerk
be
will
reported.
report.
As Res 3, fixing the hour of daily meeting of the Senate.
Without objection, the resolution is considered and approved.
Mr. President, I move to reconsider the vote by which the resolution was agreed to.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I have another resolution to the desk. I ask that it be now considered.
Clerk will report.
S. Res 4, honoring Senator Barbara Mikulski for becoming the longest-serving female senator in history.
Objection. The resolution is approved and the preamble is agreed to.
Well, I would move to reconsider that vote.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I now ask unanimous consent the following senators be recognized to speak on this resolution and Senator Mikulski's historic milestone. And I would note to other senators that there were going to be a period of morning business when we complete the business today, and ask that they agree to allow Reed of Nevada to speak for 2 minutes, McConnell 2 minutes, Cardin for 2 minutes, Snow for 2 minutes, and Mikulski for 3 minutes. I ask consent.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I came to the Senate in January 1987 in the same class as Barbara Mikulski. Every 6 January since, including today, Barbara Mikulski and I have been sworn in together. Taking that oath is humbling and meaningful for every senator. But it's a little more meaningful this time around for Senator Mikulski, for Maryland, and for our country. She's now the longest-serving woman senator in our nation's history. She has had a path-breaking career, and that's an understatement. She was the first woman elected to statewide office in Maryland and the first Democratic woman elected to the United States Senate. She was the first woman to serve in the Senate Democratic leadership when we elected her our caucus secretary. And she was the first woman ever to serve on the Senate Appropriations Committee. The woman whose record she breaks was a significant senator in her own right. Margaret Chase Smith of Maine was the first woman to be elected to both the House and at the Senate. I know Senator Mikulski very, very well. She's my friend and my confidant. And I know that more than any records, she's most proud of what she's done with that time. Time she's dedicated to tireless, passionate, and effective advocacy for those who need a voice or even a hand. She's as committed to social and economic justice as any senator who has ever served in this great chamber. And she's won the admiration and respect of her colleagues, both Democrats and Republicans, especially those for whom she has given her time, her advice, as a mentor and a role model. Alongside all her records and accomplishments, I'll always admire the way she led us in one of our darkest days. As evening fell in Washington, D.C., for the first time after the Twin Towers fell in New York, hundreds of members of Congress from the House and the Senate walked outside to the steps of the Capitol. We joined hands. Then, in a moment of silence, Senator Mikulski suggested we all sing God Bless America. We did. I'll never forget that moment. We'll always remember a speech that this good woman gave more than 2 decades ago. Senator Mikulski, Senator John Glenn, and I went on a trip to Poland, back when it was behind the communist Iron Curtain. John Glenn, who of course was an international celebrity, in addition to being a United States Senator, captivated the crowd. We were in a basement, meeting with some dissidents. Knowing Senator Mikulski is of Polish descent, I asked if she could speak next after Senator Glenn. I thought she'd say a few words about her heritage. But, Mr. President, I've heard a lot of speeches in my life. None has ever moved me more than the speech Barbara Mikulski gave in that basement in Warsaw, Poland. So congratulations to my friend, Senator Barbara Mikulski, and the state of Maryland for returning such a strong public servant to the United States Senate on their behalf.
Mr. President,
The Republican leader.
I too rise to honor our colleague, the senior senator from Maryland, on becoming the longest-serving female senator in American history. In achieving this milestone, Barbara passes Margaret Chase Smith, as the majority leader just indicated, who served the people of Maine from 1949 to 1973. As was indicated, she's also only the second woman to be elected to both the Senate and the House. When first elected to the Senate in 1986, Barbara was only the 16th woman to ever serve. Today, there are more female senators than that in the 112th Congress alone. Barbara has served as a role model and a mentor to many of them, and I know they're grateful for it. She's been a champion of the space program, science research, welfare reform, major transportation, homeland security, and environmental issues in Maryland. I think Barbara would be the first to tell you that becoming the longest-serving female senator wasn't easy. Like all streaks, including that of another Marylander, Cal Ripken, there are a lot of bumps in the road. But she's made it through it all, and we're happy to share in this milestone with her today. So I'd like to recognize Barbara not only for her accomplishment as the longest-serving female in the United States Senate history, but also for all of her many accomplishments as a U.S. Senator, and for the pioneering model she's been to so many women in her distinguished career. Again, congratulations, Senator Mikulski.
Marylanders take pride in their Hall of Famers, from Cal Ripken, our Iron Man, to Brooks Robinson with a Golden Glove, to Johnny Unitas, the Golden Arm, Frank Robinson, who was an all-star in both the American and National Leagues. And now we add to that list our own Senator Barbara Mikulski, the longest-serving woman senator in the U.S. Senate history. Marylanders are proud of Senator Barb, not because of her length of service, but what she has done as a United States Senator and has done throughout her entire career. You asked any Marylander what they think about Senator Mikulski, and they'll start off by saying she's a fighter. And then they'll say, we're glad she's on our side. She's an effective fighter for the people, from protecting neighborhoods from an unwanted highway to keeping jobs in Maryland from being shipped overseas. There's no more effective fighter than Senator Barbara Mikulski. She's protected our national security from her position on the Intelligence Committee. She strengthened the U.S. space program on her position on the Appropriations Committee. She provided equity in health care from the Health Committee. And she stands up for our federal workers, advancing gender equity issues, and the list goes on and on and on. She has taken her social worker background, her political training from ward politics in East Baltimore, and her hard work ethic from her parents, and her own common sense to be the voice for working families in the halls of the United States Senate. On a personal note, I want to thank my friend for always being there for me, working together as a team for the people of Maryland. On behalf of my 2 granddaughters, my daughter, my wife, and all Americans, thank you, Senator Mikulski, for living the American dream and making that dream a reality for so many Americans.
Mr. President.
The Senator from Maine.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are certain occasions in the life of our nation and of this esteemed institution that are so steeped in history they remain indelibly etched in our minds and upon our hearts. This is one of those iconic moments as we share in recognizing Senator Mikulski's venerable achievements with her colleagues, her family, loved ones, friends, constituents, staff, indeed the nation. This is also a special day of pride, most especially for those of us who are women senators, for whom Senator Mikulski has been a role model and mentor, as well as co-leading numerous efforts with Senator Hutchinson, our senior Republican women, to foster camaraderie among all of us. Having been privileged to know Senator Mikulski for more than 30 years, beginning with our mutual service in the House of Representatives, I cannot conceive of anyone I'd rather witness overtaking such a sacrosanct milestone than the senior senator from Maryland, a beloved, vigorous champion of the people of her state and unquestionably the women of America. Indisputably, for both of my Maine colleagues, Senator Collins and me, the landmark occasion we are commemorating is all the more personal and poignant, given we're both colleagues and dear friends of Senator Mikulski, and also direct inheritors and beneficiary of Senator Margaret Chase Smith's groundbreaking service. And it is in that light that I am deeply privileged today to stand at the very desk she once graced, and having sat across her desk when I first met her in Washington years ago, to also pay tribute to Senator Smith by wearing her pin given to me by a very good friend from Maine, Susan Longley, one of the actual pins in which Senator Smith would famously place the trademark rose she wore daily on the floor of the Senate. Indeed, there are numerous similarities between Senator Margaret Chase Smith and Senator Mikulski that transcend longevity. They both live the ideals of hard work and earning their own way in life. Senator Mikulski, the proud descendant of Polish immigrants, worked in her parents' grocery during her formative years in Baltimore. Years later, after she graduated from college, acquired a master's degree, she pursued the noble calling of social work. Senator Smith was a textile worker, telephone operator, newspaper woman, a teacher, and an office manager. The point is, neither started at the top, but they most certainly arrived there. Senator Smith rose from the humblest beginnings to represent Maine in the U.S. House of Representatives and the United States Senate for more than 32 distinguished years with unequaled courage, civility, compassion, and integrity. She was a visionary of endless firsts. But undoubtedly, Senator Smith will best be remembered for the moment during her only second year in the Senate with truly uncommon courage and principled independence. She telegraphed the truth about McCarthyism during the Red Scare of the 1950s with her renowned Declaration of Conscience speech here on the Senate floor. In 15 minutes, she had done what 94 of her colleagues, male colleagues I might add, had not dared to do, and in so doing slayed a giant of demagoguery, prompting American financier Bernard Baruch to say that had a man made that speech, he would have become the next President of the United States. Yet even as Senator Smith was a political pioneer, she never deliberately set out to establish some sort of precedent for women. Rather, what her life proved is that gender was not the key factor in public service, but that dedication and energy, confidence, ability, and sheer guts were. And if those foundational qualities don't also encapsulate the essence of the public service of Senator Barbara Mikulski, then I don't know what does. It is therefore all the more appropriate and fitting that of anyone, it would be a person of Senator Mikulski's legislative stature who would exceed Senator Smith's length of service in the Senate. And as if the benchmark established today weren't enough, on March 17, 2012, we'll all be back here on the floor of the Senate because Senator Mikulski will become the longest-serving female member in the history of the United States Congress, House or Senate. Moreover, like She probably didn't even have a chance to think about that one. Moreover, like Senator Smith, Senator Barbara Mikulski has always brought an unyielding tenacity, a cornerstone of her fighter spirit and character, that has time and again been reflected in her legislative fights on behalf of the people she represents. This will not be a newsflash to my colleagues, or even those our new colleagues will soon discover. But taking no for an answer is simply not in Senator Mikulski's vocabulary, nor her DNA. As she has often said, she is not caffeine-free. And nowhere have I witnessed that ardent focus and commitment more intensely than in Senator Mikulski's signature battle for equity in women's health research, one that Congresswoman Pat Schroeder and I were waging from the House side as well. And we all set aside our partisan labels at a time when, incredibly, women and minorities were systematically excluded from clinical medical trials at the National Institutes of Health, trials that often made the difference between life and death. At a pivotal juncture, Senator Mikulski tackled this travesty head-on and launched a key panel of stakeholders, as she can do, to explore this shocking discriminatory treatment which further galvanized national attention. And in the end, we produced watershed policy changes that to this day are resulting in life-saving medical discoveries for America's women. Ultimately, what we are celebrating here today are two legislative juggernauts who have defined the standards of principled public service by exemplifying a special bond of trust that should exist between the governing and the governed. They've seen problems confronting their constituencies and the nation and left no stone unturned to solve them. They recognized injustice and acted boldly to quell it. They've given a voice to the voiceless, power to the powerless, and they were always at one with those they represent because they never, ever forgot their roots. That is why, as senators from the state of Maine, where Senator Margaret Chase Smith's legacy has been forever enshrined, Senator Collins and I are profoundly honored to share in this rarefied moment as Senator Mikulski assumes the historic mantle of longest-serving woman in the United States Senate. Indeed, it bodes well for the venerable institution of the Senate in our great nation to have the senior senator from Maryland to be at the vanguard of our ranks. Thank you, Mr. President. Congratulations.
Mr. Vice President.
The senator from Maryland.
Mr. Vice President, I want to thank my colleagues for their very, very warm words. Today, when I walked down the aisle, escorted by my partner, my esteemed partner, Ben Cardin, my former and beloved colleague, Senator Paul Sarbanes, when I walked down that aisle, I walked into the history books. I never set out to do that, and for me, it's a great honor to join Margaret Chase Smith in the history books. As Senator Snowe has said, and also Senator Collins on a number of occasions, Margaret Chase Smith and I share many things in common. Today they wear the rose, but those two outstanding senators from Maine also wear the values of Maine and the values of Margaret Chase Smith. A strong belief in constituent service, staying close to the people, focusing on jobs for the state, being a strong supporter of innovation, and a fierce, unrelenting streak of independence. I hope I'm like her. I know that they bear that same set of characteristics. But for me, it's not how long I serve, but how well I serve. Service for me is about being connected to my constituents, staying close to them so they don't fall between the cracks, meeting their day-to-day needs, and also looking at the long-range needs of the nation. Nobody comes here by themselves. Later on today, I'll thank my friends and supporters, but I want to thank the wonderful people who shaped me, the wonderful nuns who taught me, the School Sisters of Notre Dame and the Sisters of Mercy, who taught me about leadership, who taught me about service, who taught me about my faith in Beatitudes 5, or Matthew 5, the Beatitudes, that said, hunger and thirst after justice. But today, as I stand here, I also think about my mother and father. I'm really filled with great emotion. I wish my mother and father were here today. They worked so hard for my sisters and I to have an education. But though they're not here with me today in the Senate gallery, I hope they're with me I know they're in my heart, but I want them to know that they're with me when I fight for what we believed in. My father ran a small grocery store. Everybody loved my father and mother. They were known for honesty and integrity. When my father opened the grocery store every morning, he would say, "Good morning, can I help you?" And that's the kind of values I bring to the United States Senate. Our family came from Poland. When my great-grandmother arrived in this country, she had little money in her pocket, but she had a big dream in her heart. And that dream was the American dream, where through hard work and dedication, you could make something of yourself. You could own a home. You could have a job. You could get an education for your family. She didn't even have the right to vote. And in this great country of ours, in 3 generations, I joined the United States Senate. She knew about hard work in terms of economic opportunity. She didn't think too much about the Constitution, but I do, and particularly that First Amendment. I got into politics fighting a highway. In other countries, they take dissidents and put them in jail. In the United States of America, because of the First Amendment, they put you in the United States Senate. God bless America. When I came to the United States Senate, though I was all by myself, I said I was never alone because of the wonderful way the men have elected me. The history of the women in the Senate is short. I might add 4'11" short. But everything we've done, we've been able to work on together. I fought for seniors to try to pass the spousal impoverishment legislation to make sure that the very cruel rules of our government didn't force people into bankruptcy when they had to turn to a nursing home. To work to pass the Louis Ledbetter bill to give equal work for equal pay. Our wonderful work on women's health, where we broke barriers in terms of research, but we know we've saved lives because of what we've done in research and our preventive health amendments. And for young people in national service. And I've also fought Maryland, whether it's cleaning up the Bay or fighting, looking out for the Goddard Space Agency or doubling the funding at National Institutes of Health. For me, again, it's all about service. I'm fighting for a stronger economy and a safer America. For me, it's not about the past, it's about the future. Though I break one record today, I'm going to work with all of you on both sides of the aisle to break other records. Let's break that high record of unemployment in our country. Let's break that record of low graduation rates in our high school. Let's break the record of the longest war in American history and bring our troops home as safely as we can. I want to build a strong economy and work on this innovation economy so that we are able to move ahead in this country. Today, when I take my oath, which I did, I pledge that I want to help America be great again with a renewed self-confidence and achievement. I want us to be a global leader in this innovation economy. I want to help America be excellent again so we win not only Nobel Prizes, and I want us to win lots of them, but I want to win markets, international markets, and win lots of them. I want to promote a sense of community where we look out for each other and for our community, and where the people of the United States of America know that they have a government on their side. For me, I want to close by a quote from George Bernard Shaw. I'm convinced that my life belongs to the whole community, and as long as I live, it's my privilege to do for it whatever I can. For the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle to me. It's sort of a splendid torch, which I get a hold of for a moment, and I want it to burn as brightly before turning it over to the future generation. Someday in the future, someone else will break that record. Let's work together to break those other records. Thanks for everything, and God bless America.